Welcome to another Bedford Consulting Spotlight video, this time focusing on workforce planning. The overall goal for workforce planning really is to have the right workforce mix at the right time and at the optimum cost, but whilst also promoting collaboration between HR, finance, and the various business functions. So let's see how you can achieve this in Anaplan. So we're starting off here on our headcount report, where we can break down our headcount plan into a multitude of attributes. We can look at this by geography and also by department. And as ever in Anaplan, across as many planning versions as you need. What we see here on our dashboard is the start of year headcount and the movements to get to the end of year headcount. Everything in between is all the actions and changes that are happening to our plans. Aside from the headcount, we can also see the financial impact of all the decisions we're making in this model in real time. So if we're adding new headcount or if we're factoring in the impact of attrition, we can see the financial impact of that right the way across all of our attributes. Now let's start the planning by looking at a workforce plan strategically. The most simplest way you can plan for headcount is through a top-down allocation approach. For top-down planning, you can do it both in terms of a financial value, or in this case, a headcount or FTE number, where we can take our historical headcount across our divisions at this top level, and then being able to drive growth at that top level and then push it down to each of the different business areas, such as in this example, down to our geographies and then down to our departments. In this top box, I can set a top level growth for our headcount centrally. So I'm going to increase the systems division by 10%. That figure has then now fed down to the geography based on the prior year percentage split, but we could define any driver for this allocation. We can then choose to override this amount at the geography level or hold. So maybe I'll override this one and reduce that slightly to 175 and then choose to hold at the EMEA level. The remaining headcount is then balanced on Asia Pacific to meet the top level growth still of 10%. Then in this last box, we're allocating one level further down into departments. You can see our 175 heads have been allocated down to the departments based on prior year splits. We can then choose to override again or hold. So I might choose to override on the sales team, hold on the services team, and then the remaining balance of heads has been allocated over the product and operations team. This is an example of easy allocating a top-down headcount. You can continue this allocation down to any level of detail you choose. So very quickly you're able to set a strategic headcount plan, both in terms of FTE or heads, but also financially. These can then be used as strategic targets for our budget holders when they complete their detailed headcount plans. There are a number of ways to plan for that detailed bottom-up headcount plan. In this example, we are now at the detailed employee level by department. This allows the managers of each department to plan for their individual employees and new hires. The data in here is usually fed in from a HR system, and this is an example of attribute-based planning. So bringing in and being able to amend specific attributes about an employee and having these drive our salary and benefit calculations. So here I'm able to increase someone's salary. So if I choose to increase this person's salary, it's then going to kick off an approval process, or maybe I want to amend someone's pension scheme or their FTE, and it's going to have an immediate impact on their salaries and benefits calculations. I can also set an end date to someone. So in this example, this person is leaving the department, and Anaplan will calculate the salary and benefits up to the day they are planned to leave. Adding in new headcount is also easily done by selecting the Add Employee button on the right. The user is then prompted to complete a number of the attributes in order for Anaplan to calculate the new employee costs. And finally, the breakdown of all salary costs by employee can be seen on the bottom grid and this waterfall chart. The next example is operations capacity planning. So this is used by organizations that tie headcount to metrics or volumes. In this dashboard, we're looking at an example of a processing business where we can bring in the demand for processing hours from a supply chain model. So the first thing we need to do is bring through our processing volume demand hours. We can then identify from this if we have a gap and can start modeling for our capacity. In our graph, we see our total hours required, our current FTE staffing, and the gap we need to fill or schedule if we have any. Looking at this example, we have a significant gap that we need to fill, of which we can do this down the bottom. So we can plan in here for new hires or for temporary staff. This is another great example of extended planning where we are taking data from another model or business function in real time. We can then bring that data in and then start planning off of it. The last example I'm going to show is ratio driven. Ratios can be applied to structure hiring, particularly when you have roles that support or are tied to another role. So that is what we're seeing here on the left, an example of where we are using sales to define the ratios of our other roles. If we take this data manager role, we have linked it to sales on a 5-to-1 ratio, meaning with the 57 heads we have in this area, we then have a current headcount of 9. That leaves us a gap of 2. Anaplan is then able to identify automatically what that gap is across all the ratio-driven roles and enable planning for it. So hopefully that has shown ways in which organizations are using Anaplan to optimize their workforce plans. Thank you for watching. If you want any more information about workforce planning in Anaplan, or if you would like a more detailed demonstration, please speak to us and we'll be happy to help.